So welcome, man. So where are you located at, Alex?
So I live obviously in the UK, as you can probably tell by my accent, but I live in
What
Nottingham.
accent?
That's it, just generic accent. But no, I'm from Nottingham. So Nottingham's right in the Midlands of the UK. So it's about 130 miles north of London.
How's everybody excited about the World Cup there? Is that a big deal there in Britain?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially with Brazil now being knocked out, it just makes it a little bit easier for us. So yeah, exciting time.
Yeah. My brother-in-law came over last week, and he's no matter what sport it is, he's watching it on TV. He's one of those guys. And
But yeah, you're not going to escape it over here, that's for sure.
yeah, and so he got me watching. We watched the Brazil game, and it's kind of cool. I never really paid much attention to it. We call it soccer over here, but it's kind of cool because it's nonstop. It's constant go on that. I just never really realized it.
Oh yeah. If you're going to get into football or soccer, start with the World Cup because it's the best of the best. So yeah, definitely. If you're going to give it a go, watch those teams.
Yeah. Way cool. So let's talk about you, man. Enough about soccer. So you're an HVAC tech. So just let the audience know. I found Alex. I was watching a bunch of his videos, and I go, man, I think my audience would like to hear from this guy. And
Uh,
you had some really engaging videos. Good job, man.
no, appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate the good feedback. So first caveat I always say is I'll often refer to myself and others as engineers, where that term, especially in this country, is used a lot more loose it is, I think, over there, because you often refer to us as technicians, and an engineer, someone with a degree, is more used more loosely over here, I'd say. So often I'll be referred to as an engineer and refer myself as an engineer, but I've not been to university to get an engineering degree.
Okay.
So it's just a bit more of a loose term to describe a technician.
Right.
So if throughout this conversation, if I describe myself as an engineer, it's just a terminology difference. That's all.
Yep.
So
That happens a lot.
so when I left school at the age of 16 and I went to college, originally to do plumbing, and it was a 1 year course at college. And after that, you would find a job, and you would have learned the theory side of plumbing, and then you would do a portfolio to get your qualification in plumbing, in MVQ level 2.
Hmm.
I couldn't find a job plumbing; nobody was taking on, and it was at that time back in 2006 where plumbers were going to be making thousands and thousands of pounds. So everybody wanted to be plumbers. So it was a bit difficult to get a job being a plumber. But I worked with a chap whose brother owned an air conditioning company. So I went for an interview with them, and that was it. Started working with them, and then I got sent to college to do my MVQ level 2 and 3 qualifications in air conditioning and refrigeration. Worked with that company for quite a few years, and it was all big new construction, constant building sites. Just installing day in, day out. So over here, our market is very different. We don't have the same domestic market as you guys do. So predominantly all our AC is what you would describe as ductless. So VRV systems, VRF systems, and then splits, whether that's twin splits, triple splits, or whatever. And then you get big air handling units with DX coils in there, but often connected to an AC unit. There's some differences, but that's predominantly what the sort of kit is. So I pretty much was installing VRV units for many years, and then 2008 happened, the big crash. That company sort of limped on for a couple more years, and then in 2012 started at a company that I've just previously left.
Hey, thanks for checking out this podcast. I have a quick message for you that I'm super excited about. In the near future, we're going to be hosting a free 5-day skill trade workshop. And the way you get information on that is go to our homepage at skilledtraderescue.com and scroll down a little bit to the Discover link, and that'll pop you over to our Discover page. And on that page, there's going to be slides that will show you here what each day of the workshop covers. Now, this will be delivered via email about every other day, and there's 5 days total with a bonus day. And then following that last email that you're going to get, you're going to get an invitation to group sessions that I'm going to be holding for people that go through the workshop. And these group sessions are going to be designed to answer questions for current skilled trade pros, people that are in the trades, that are having particular problems in certain areas of their career, or maybe somebody who is thinking about getting into skilled trades. So I hope you consider signing up. All you do is fill it out. You'll get a confirmation email, and we will let you know when it's time to get started. Have a great day, and let's get back to your podcast.
And then I've just now started a brand new company, which is a little bit more office based, a bit more project manager based, and that's pretty much it. I've been doing it what feels like a very long time, but maybe not that long to others. It's probably only been about 16 years, but with all the overtime, it probably feels about 30.
Yeah. So I want to rewind a little bit. So when you got out of, so they have high school. We call it high school here. So your normal.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you were getting ready to graduate high school, you mentioned that you went to college. So did they have trade school college and then regular college? Explain that a little bit.
So again, terminology difference. So back many moons ago when I was at school, you would leave school at 16. That's no longer the case. You're in school till 18. So
okay.
Leave school at 18. You'd either go and get a job, or you would go to college and you would do what's called your A levels, or you could do a vocational course, which would be a trade effectively, or a qualification in hairdressing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to go to university, you would do your A levels and then you would apply for university afterwards.
Right. Okay.
So I think the college terminology is just slightly different over here. That's all.
Right.
So I imagine me doing AC and refrigeration would be the equivalent of you going to a trade school.
Trade school. Yep. That's exactly right. So what was the deciding factor for you of instead of going to university to be a accountant or a computer programmer, whatever, versus going into the trades? What was your mindset at that time when you got out of your school at 16 or now 18?
So when I left school, I thought, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to go and do my A-levels. I don't want to go to college. Even though I ended up going to college, I didn't really want to do it. I wanted to start earning money. I'm also dyslexic, so the thought of effectively a couple more years of stuck in a classroom was not appealing to me whatsoever. And I also wanted a trade. Like at the time, I wanted a plumbing trade because that was the big thing.
Right.
I believe, especially in this country, nobody grows up wanting to be an air conditioning engineer because it's this hidden industry.
Right.
It's just in the background. Nobody really knows about it. So you either know somebody's already doing it or you fall into it. And that's pretty much how I fell into it. So again, I wanted to do plumbing and thousands of pounds, but nobody was taking on. And it just so happens I was working with a guy during the holidays who was doing a bit of plumbing, but his background was air conditioning. And he says, well, why do you fancy doing this? It's a bit of plumbing, a bit of electrical, a bit of everything. So I thought, great, I'll get into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that. We have a very similar history because I'm moderately dyslexic as well, and I fell into the trades. Well, a long time ago. I'm going on 40 years, and that's how I ended up going into trades because the amount of reading that you have to do in our college, which the way we do it here is we have. You go to regular, you have grammar school, middle school, high school. High school ends at 18, and supposedly right around that time you're an adult, whatever, whatever that is. And usually around 17, 18, when you're getting ready to graduate from high school, is when there's that pressure what am I going to do? Am I going to go into the trades, or am I going to go into a 4-year college? What am I going to do? You know, and
Yeah,
so
I mean, especially when I was 16, there was a huge amount of pressure from schools to effectively, you have to make your mind up then. Are you going to go to college and university? Are you going to get a trade? Or are you just going to go and get a job? And it's this sort of mentality that someone between the ages of 16 and 18 are going to know what they want to do for the rest of their life. And that's quite a lot of pressure to put on a young adult. I mean, there's a
yeah,
lot of people I know in the 40s and 50s, they're still not sure what they want to do for the rest of their lives.
yeah, that's exact. Was there very much pressure, does your what we call high school, do they have like counselors that kind of try and steer you into certain things? Does that happen over there?
I think it does in some schools. My particular school, they had a bit of a sort of a jobs fair sort of thing. So various colleges and universities would come in
Okay.
and basically say, this is what we do. But I would have to say there was a real push to go to university.
Okay.
This idea mentality is you're only going to make money if you go to university,
Right.
but you're going to be in thousands of pounds worth of debt doing it.
Right.
And there wasn't much um, visual things of what the trade can offer when I was at school.
Mhm.
It was more of a case that, like I say, university is your best bet. So unless you were actively looking at what other opportunities there were,
Mhm.
it was just this sort of narrow tunnel of that's the only way you can go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing here. Do you have you ever heard like roughly how much? Let's say somebody over in Britain, they go to college, a university, and they get their degree and whatever. I know it depends on the degree, but what kind of debt load, once they graduate and they actually, graduate from university with a science degree or communications degree or whatever it is, what kind of debt load do these people have coming out of college or university?
So college is so when I was at college, it was free for under 21s. So
Okay.
Um, when I did plumbing for a year, that was free, and when I did my 3 years at college doing refrigeration air conditioning, that was also free.
Okay.
Um, and it is also free if you've got, for any age, if you've got a company under 30 employees as well.
Oh.
Because I was looking at
Wow.
into for a fellow colleague who really wants to get into that side of it. So I had a chat with one of the colleges, and basically, as long as from the top of my head, if there's less than 30 employees, it's free. Doesn't matter what age. University. My brother did a graphic design degree,
Mhm.
and I think he's in something around top of my head about £35,000 worth of debt for that.
Let's
So
see. So 35,000 pounds is $42,893 US. So yeah, that's probably about comparable with what it is over here. And especially, I mean, that for that type of a degree, if you're going to be a graphics designer or computer coder over here, you're looking at, yeah, pretty close to $50,000 in debt coming out. Now, if you're a doctor or something like that, it gets up into hundreds of thousands of US dollars. Hey, I wanted to take a quick break from this episode to share something with you I hope you find as exciting as I do. We are conducting a 2023 wage and job satisfaction survey specifically for skilled trades. The unique thing about this survey is the data, each time participants hit submit, the information is processed and put up live on our website. So unlike the surveys you take sometimes and you never have an idea of what happens with the data, we're providing that data to the industry in real time. So to get some more information about it, please consider stopping into skilledtraderescue.com. Of course, scroll down a little bit on the homepage here. You'll see some information about the survey. There's a link on this information area that'll take you to the survey site. I will have a video at the top of the page that will provide a lot more information about what we're doing, why we're doing it, who benefits, and all that kind of stuff. And if it's calling you to get involved, which I really hope it does, please consider submitting the survey. All right, well, that's it for this message. I hope you consider participating. And now let's get back to this podcast episode.
Yeah.
Kind of nuts.
Yeah. It's a lot of money anyway, look at it.
Yeah. Well, cool. So, what's cool? So why did you change jobs? Did you just feel like you kind of outgrew the place you work with? Because it looks like here that you were there for what, about 10 years, and then recently, just like this month, you went to work for a new place. You started describing that. What was the main reason why you jumped? Why you left?
So this is actually, I've just completed my first week at this company.
Yeah.
So the previous company I worked for, rather bizarrely, actually used to be American owned back in the 50s. It's got a bit of a strange history, but it never started off as an aircon company. It actually started off working on aeroplanes. Very convoluted history, but yeah. So this company, Field Air was the company, and a brilliant little company it was. Never had an issue, but I quickly sort of, after about 5 or 6 years, realised there's no way forward through this company for me to progress. I was already the lead engineer on the AC side, and there wasn't going to be any options of moving into a more office-based role, and it's not necessarily. So there's this sort of mentality where you seem to put your best engineers or technicians in the office and think they're going to make everybody else as good as you were. That does not happen.
It never happens. Trust me.
No. So there was nowhere for me to go, and to be honest, I started to sort of lose a bit of love of this industry, which I really do enjoy my job and I enjoy the industry. I think it's a fantastic industry. So I was losing a little bit of interest in it, and I was a bit of a crossroads of what to do, and I was seriously considering being a subcontractor, and I was going to give it another 2 more years. Because of my youngest daughter, she's in nursery, which is £1,000 a month. So I thought, wait until she's out of nursery and then go it alone and see what happens. I haven't got anything to lose. And the last 3-4 months, I've just been doing videos on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I was approached by a few people, but I was sort of like, no, I've got my plan set in stone. That's what I'm going to do. And then I was offered by another local company based in Nottingham, and they basically said, you won't have to do any more working away, you won't have to do any more night work, and it's all nice local work for you, so you're not travelling 4 hours to a job and 4 hours back, and then the pay is slightly better, and we want you part in the office, part on the road. We want to try and give you more responsibility, and most importantly, try and improve the skill set of the people that are working there on the tools and bring them up. They had an apprentice that started, help him get through college and learning more and more things on the tools. So there's a more of a sort of a teaching aspect to it, which I really enjoy. I haven't had an apprentice for quite a few years now, but it's something I really enjoy about this industry. There's not many other industries that you can have one-to-one training every single day compared to any trade. And that's what I enjoy so much about this industry is you can teach someone every little bit of information you know, all the useless and useful bits that you know. And that's such a fantastic thing. So hopefully that this new job will give me that ability to do that.
So the job that you left, what was the mix of the market they were doing? Was it mostly residential and commercial, or what was the kind of the mix that you were doing before?
So it was the company did a very few other things, but the AC side is mainly commercial. The company looked after a lot of a particular type of supermarket based in the UK. And it was pretty much nationwide. We didn't really do Scotland, but we did Wales, England, minus a few areas. So it was all over the country effectively.
Hmm.
And we'd work at quite a few industrial places as well,
Hmm. Hmm.
working on chillers, a little bit of refrigeration, but not much. But it was mainly your VRVs and your split
Oh,
AC
that's what you were
units.
saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you touched on that. So there's not really like the residential market that there is here. I guess that makes sense because your climate there tends to be a little more cooler. You don't have like, like we do down in the southern United States where, there's places down there that they could go weeks or even months, not going below 90 degrees Fahrenheit, you know.
No, no. I mean, it's that thing is the UK is a third the size of Texas,
Right.
which wherever way you think about it, how small or how big the United States is quite hard to comprehend.
Right.
But yeah, so we effectively pretty much have one climate zone, and
Right.
it's
Okay.
cool and a bit
Right.
wet, and then gets occasionally warm in the summertime. So no, we do not have anywhere near the domestic market that you guys
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
It is a market that is slowly growing, because domestic market AC has always been a very luxury thing, it's a luxury
Right.
item.
Right.
But obviously we achieved 40 degrees back in August, which is
Hmm.
unheard of. Um,
Hmm.
but the summers are getting warmer, so it is something that's becoming more and more demanded in the
Hmm.
domestic market. And there's some people that make a very good living out of just purely doing domestic installs
Right.
and domestic work. But previous company, that was a very small aspect of it. I would probably do maybe 2 or 3 domestic install in a year. This
Hmm.
new company that I'm working for, because of COVID, and everybody was on furlough at home. So during the whole COVID thing, what they did over here is everybody pretty much went on furlough unless you were a key worker, i.e., if you work in a supermarket, nurse, police, all that sort of stuff. But you would be paid 80% of your salary. So people were still getting paid that sat at
Hmm.
home. Some people worked at home. Obviously, it's a bit hard to install aircon units while working from home. But so a lot of people had quite a bit of disposable income, so people started investing. Well, I've got a home office now. I want air conditioning. So the domestic market grew quite quickly
Hmm.
during COVID, and it's maintaining now. So it's something that people are less seeing as a luxury item, but more as a necessity. So the
Right.
domestic market is definitely growing.
Yeah. What do they do for heating over there? Do they have gas or do they use heat pumps?
So the traditional form of heating in most domestic properties in this country is what often called central heating or hydronics. So you would have a boiler that would either feed just your radiators around your house and
Hmm.
your hot water as
Okay.
well. So,
Okay.
but there's a huge push in this country and in Europe to go to heat pumps, air source heat pumps to
Right.
do hot water, and that's a massively growing market.
Yeah.
Um, they will ban gas. I think it's either the next 5 or 10 years. I can't remember off the top of my head. Where no new, it might even be shorter than that. No new domestic properties will have gas.
Mm,
It will be heat pumps.
interesting. So if you want to be in just refrigeration, you wanted to be in servicing refrigeration, the key markets over there to be able to get into that is going to be commercial industrial because um, they always need that. Supermarkets and big, refrigerated warehouses and office buildings and stuff like that. That's the niches there that guys like you could flourish, right?
Yeah, there is a huge demand in refrigeration engineers. Well, there's a huge demand in all trades, to be honest. But refrigerations are severely sought after, along with electricians, plumbers, and normal AC engineers.
Hmm.
We're Australia's in a very similar situation where they're in huge demand, and it is a constant battle of they keep poaching engineers from over here, and we keep poaching engineers from over there. So, but
Yeah.
the qualifications can be easily transferred, as well as in New Zealand and I think Canada, but I'm not too sure. So that MVQ, if you've got that over here, it's an easily transferable
Mm,
qualification.
okay.
I, I don't believe that's the same with the US. I think you
Yeah,
have to actively reapply for your qualification.
yeah, yeah. So your new opportunity where you're at now, this company you just started at, it sounds like a great thing. So do you like teaching? Do you like that role of bringing up these young pups and teaching them the ropes? Is that part of your personality? Do you have a heart of a teacher?
Um, I don't know. I enjoy it. I really, really do enjoy it. And whether I'm any good at it might be a completely different thing. I mean, I've had four apprentices since in the last 16 years. Um, One left, well, the previous company, back in 2008, when that finished, he went off and worked with another guy for a couple of years, but he's no longer in the industry. So
Hmm.
that one didn't work out too well. My last apprentice, he went out on his own for a couple of years. He was a pretty good guy, to be honest, but he's completely left the industry again, so that one didn't work out too well. My third apprentice, absolutely brilliantly lovely lad. Again, he got sick of all the long days and working away, so he left the industry. And my last apprentice, a chap called Alex, absolutely brilliant. He's still doing it. He's a senior engineer at another company. Um, he did the level two is a 2 year course. He did that in 1 year and
Mm.
then did his level three in 1 year. Absolute brilliant guy. Um, so 1 out of 4 is not bad, but I don't
No.
think I've got a particularly good record. But yeah, 1 out of 4. But yeah, I really do enjoy it. I mean, I feel for apprentices because it's the luck of the draw who you end up working with. Yes, you can move around different engineers, but if you work at a particularly small company and the person you're working with isn't a particularly good teacher or has a particular stressful workload and might not be able to give you the time to teach you every little thing,
Mhm.
it's not easy. But it's also not easy on the engineer that possibly doesn't have that time to pass on all the
Right.
information they can.
Well, Alex, you got to understand that your success, 1 out of 4 is not bad, but your success as a teacher, and believe me, the industry needs people like you. Um, has a lot to do with the company environment. It has a lot to do with that. And you can have an excellent teacher that's in a company culture, and I'm not saying that's how it was at your company, your prior company, but it has to be kind of a perfect alignment. It has to be a company that's supportive of internal development, and then it also has to be the individuals that you assign to bring up the new generation have to like to teach, and then it has to do too with the individual, which you have no control over. I mean, if these guys, somebody has a growing family and they're they're hearing it at home about being out during the summertime or whatever, 18 hours out of 24 hours, that's tough on relationships, and some relationships just don't survive that. So the tech has to change industries, that you have no control over that stuff.
No, it's one of those is you've got to have everything sort of align all at once to get the best outcome.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a real shortage of people coming into this industry anyway. I always see it as the hidden industry, especially in this country because you don't have the domestic market.
Hmm.
It's there in the background. So when you walk into a nice shop, it's nice and cool because
Hmm.
of other stuff. You don't think about it.
Right.
So when you have electricians and you have plumbers, well, you have lights and you have sinks at home, so already know those industries when you're in school. So that's what if you're going to go to a trade, that's what your push is. Your electricians, your plumbers, your painters, decorators, all that sort of stuff. But AC and refrigeration's just this other thing that nobody knows. So you have less people coming in, and so you don't have young people going, actually, no, I want to be an AC or refrigeration engineer because those
Right.
there's people coming in who want to do something, are more
Yeah.
engaging to learn. Especially this country, we have a real situation where because you either fall into it or you get in it because you know somebody. The issue is when you know somebody in it, you're not necessarily giving it your all because this job is possibly been already handed to you. So
Hmm.
the enthusiasm to learn more, the enthusiasm to, oh, can I have a go at this? What does that do? Ask questions, get involved. Sometimes can be less, and I've definitely seen it with apprentices coming in who effectively have been given the job because their dad's one of the managers or
Hmm.
something like that, and you don't
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily get that enthusiasm and that drive of yes, right, well, I want to be an install engineer and then I want to go into servicing and all that sort of stuff. They don't see a path forward; they just see it as a job. And I can't fault any technician or engineer that just sees it as a job. Then that's fair enough. If that's all you want to do in life, then that's fair enough. But I
Hmm.
think it's such a missed opportunity of how many different things, especially in this industry, that you
Right,
can go into.
right.
Um, and which is why I love this industry so much. I think it's so important to get young people in because at the end of the day, we're so reliant on young people as we get older that I want younger people to do all the really difficult jobs that I don't like doing in this industry, so I don't have to do them. So I need them to do those jobs.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So, you mentioned this a few times, and I want to delve into this because we're having the same problem over here in the States, is finding people. Um, how much of a shortage is there? Do you have any idea? Um, you know, well, let me ask you this. Let's say somebody goes to college there for trade, and they graduate, like you did with HVAC refrigeration degree. Do they pretty much have their pick on where they want to go to work? Is pretty much all the businesses out there hiring constantly, or what's the opportunity environment as far as getting placed once you put in the work to get educated in refrigeration?
So the main ways of getting in is so how I did it. I started at a company and they decided, right, we're going to send you off to college to get this MVQ. So
Hmm.
it gives you that basic understanding of how systems work, diagnose and all that sort of stuff. Once you've got
Hmm.
that qualification, you are then air quotes, a qualified engineer. Doesn't necessarily matter that you can do the job or not. It's just
Right.
you've got this piece of paper that says you've
Right.
got a certain basic understanding.
Hmm.
The other method is if, like I did with my plumbing, I left school, went to college and got this, they call it a technical certificate. So it means you have a basic theory understanding, but you have no on-site job experience. So when I was at college for the 3 years, it was block release. So I stayed away. So 4 weeks at a time, 3 times a year. I would stay. This was in Grimsby College. I would stay there for 4 weeks, 3 times a year, and it was half, 80 theory based, and then 20% practical, and then I would you'd have a set of exams, portfolios to fill out, and then when you're actually back at work, back on the tools, you would have a series of job write-ups, and you would have to hit certain criteria, anything from health and safety to safety management to working working anything out, I suppose, from how your routes are going to go, pipework routes, install, fixing things and all that stuff. And you would have to write a big job sheet up and hit the criteria, and that would get assessed. And then you'd have effectively your technical certificate, which was all your college-based stuff, and your full MBQ, which included your site portfolio.
Okay.
So normally, when you're going through that process like I did, it's because you already have a job. If I was
Oh, okay. Okay.
if I had gone straight to college and done just the technical certificate side, I couldn't finish the portfolio because I would need a company to work for. So I would have to then find a company to take me on to do the actual
Right. Okay.
portfolio
I
side.
see. Okay.
But you can only do your level two that way. You wouldn't be able to move on to your level three until you'd completed your level two. By completing level two, you'd had to have found a company to work for. So by doing level three, you would already be working for another company.
So it's sort of like there's a kind of a partnership between the educational system and the market, right? So, the
Yes.
educational, okay, that makes it. So, okay, so let's take the story a little bit further. So um, let's say you've been working for the same company for 10 years, you got all your certifications, and you're down the road a little bit. what's the difficulty level for an experienced seasoned tech like you if you want to change companies? Is it pretty much you've got a pick of ones you can hire or that are willing to hire you? What's the difficulty on finding a job should somebody want to change companies there?
Um, if you would have asked me about 5 years ago, I would have said it's probably quite difficult. But when I actually was in the process of looking for other jobs, I was actually quite surprised with the amount of people that contacted me going, we think you'd be a perfect fit at our place. We would offer you this, this and this. So it's probably much easier than you think it is. I thought it'd be quite a difficult process, but there is a lot more jobs out there for any AC engineer of any skill level than there is AC engineers out there. So it really is a market that the engineer, the technician has the power because there is a shortage, a real shortage in this country. So it is probably much easier than people realise that you can just go out of one job straight into another,
So
which is
what?
how it should be.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's how it is here. What? Just I wanted to find out what did you do to start generating that interest? I know you put a lot of videos out there. I mean, was social media helpful to you when you really started seriously looking for a new position? How did you go about doing that? What was your trick to get more interest?
Um, to be honest, I started the social media stuff because I was working on a big, horrible, nasty chiller, and I was on pressure testing it, and I was giving it a couple of hours to make sure it wasn't dropping, and I was a little bit bored. So I just did a quick video on I think it was how to compensate the temperature when pressure testing.
Uh-huh.
And then I got some good feedback, and I thought, oh well, I'll just do a few more because I've got no apprentice to annoy with useful and useless information. I might as well just tell everybody else of my useless information.
That's so good.
So I set up the Instagram. I think I had a LinkedIn from a couple of years ago, which I
Yeah,
never used, and I
yeah,
just slowly built it up. It was definitely more the LinkedIn things because that's more of a professional industry side of it.
right,
Um, and it was just simple videos of why maintenance is really important.
right.
If you're working on this particular manufacturer of equipment, if you want to put it in recovery mode, these are the buttons you press. I mean, it's all simple stuff. And a lot of the stuff, to be fair, is you can find the same sort of videos online. It was nothing really different,
Yeah,
but it seemed to gain a little bit of traction. That was all. But it
yeah.
was mainly to amuse myself because I had no one else to waffle at, basically.
Yeah, well, plus two, I mean, when you were looking for work, the first thing these HR managers do is they'll pull up your social media and they probably said, "Wow, this guy, he's giving back and he's got the right attitude, and wow, I want to hire that guy." That's what I would have
Either
done.
I thought he never does any work. He's just always doing
Yeah.
videos.
No, there is a lot of downtime. Or what I used to call windshield time. There's a lot of time where, especially if you're covering a large area, there is a lot of boredom periods. You're evacuating a system and it's cold outside, and your evacuation system's just kind of hanging out, not doing much, and you gotta fill that time with something.
Well, that's it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, fill the time while it's on back. Go get yourself a coffee and do a
Yeah,
video of why it's so important to do it, but do it when you're not in the rain, sort of thing. But
yeah,
that's all how it started. But I just wanted to jump back regarding sort of the qualifications. So in this country, there's a lot of engineers that don't go to college, and the effectively the bare minimum is what's called your F-gas, and it's your safe handling of refrigerants, and that
right.
is a basic qualification that lets you handle refrigerants. There's a couple of different categories, but the one that most people have is category one, and that effectively lets you basically handle refrigerant. You physically put refrigerant lines. So there's a lot of engineers out there who have never been to college, but they have that F-gas. and that
Mhm.
F-gas that qualification is used all over Europe.
Right.
So we do have, I won't say an issue with a lot of guys not going to college, because I think a lot of the time it's not needed. I think it's dependent on what you are doing in the industry, if that is
Mhm.
needed or not.
Mhm.
Um, but that's effectively the bare minimum you need in this industry.
Yeah. So I want to move ahead on to another subject. So I interview a lot of techs, a lot of people that are in the industry, and when I get a chance to have real in-depth conversation with them, there's three areas that are a particular challenge for people that are in skilled trades, and in no particular order. Uh, the first one is work-life balance, and you kind of touched on this a little bit. There's been a couple of technicians that you've trained, and they've moved on. Commonly, somebody having a industry change has to do with as you grow older and your family grows and things like that. Work-life balance gets to be a real challenge. The next one is uh, finances. Now, what I mean by that is over here in the States, somebody who goes into skilled trades, and it doesn't matter if it's HVAC, refrigeration, plumbers, whatever it is, and any of the skilled trades over here, um, they don't teach financial habits in our high schools anymore. They don't teach that. They used to have this class called home economics, and they teach you the basics about budgeting and about money management. And the challenge for these skilled tradesmen here in the States is they start making some serious money. They don't have any debt because they don't have a school loan for the most part. So money management is a challenge. So work-life balance, money management, and then the other one has to do with skill development. A lot of technicians have a tendency to get sort of stuck. They get pigeonholed where, this guy does residential, he's a good installer, and this guy's a good service guy, but they get stale. And I think you kind of touched on that when, the previous company you were at, no fault to that company, but you're feeling kind of stuck. So there seems to be a lack of uh, evolution of what you should do to grow your technical excellence, if you will. So work-life balance, money management or money understanding, and then technical excellence. Which one do you think is? How would you prioritize those, or are they just not an issue over there?
So work-life balance, I mean, my wife's probably a better one to ask than I am. Um, I mean, yes, work-life balance is a difficult one, especially, I mean, in most trades, but particularly this one. So my first company that I worked for, as a 18-year-old lad, it was brilliant because I was working all over the country. I've worked in Paris and Belfast, and it was brilliant. Because it was all new construction, you sort of, I mean, the latest you'd finish is about 6 o'clock, and then you'd go out of the town and you'd go out with the electricians from the site, the plumbers from the site, and it was absolutely brilliant.
Right.
And then you get older and those hangovers last longer and it's harder to do your work when you've had a skinful the night before. And then you meet someone and it gets more and more difficult. And I spent a year away from home on one job. And that was the Harry Potter studios where they filmed a lot of the Harry Potter stuff.
Right.
Uh, and I was there for a year, and again I'd be 6 months somewhere else, and that was difficult. And then I joined the previous company I've just left, and it was no more working away for long periods of time. So I felt brilliant, but I was traveling a lot more. I would still do the occasional night away or the week away, but I was leaving the house at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I wasn't getting back at 10 o'clock, and that wasn't really any better. I was probably better off doing the working away, and there was much more night
Yeah.
work. And for me, I go into when I'm working away or I'm doing this long hours, I stay in work mode until I'm home.
Yeah. I'm the
So
same way.
I become so focused on that, I probably am not as good as a communicator to my friends and family as I should be, because for me to get through those long hours, I need to be in work mode and think about work. So it's always going to be so much harder than the people sat at home, not sure what time you're going to be home, or waiting for you on that Friday evening to get through the door and you finish work. I mean, I know I've met a lot of engineers that take work home with them. I've always been fortunate I haven't. As soon as I'm home, work is the least on my mind, and that's it.
Mm.
But when I'm at work, I'm stuck in full work mode. So when my wife goes, "Do you know what time you're going to be home for dinner?" No idea, because I'm at work. Until this job is finished, I cannot tell you.
Yeah.
So, and when I finally came up with all the reasons why I wanted to leave that company, one of the big selling points for me was it's local work. So the most I'm an hour away from home. So the worst I'm getting is 6 o'clock. You might have the occasional bad day where you're home a bit later, but I'm seeing the kids in the morning when I leave work rather than leaving before they get up and getting home after they've gone to bed, because I might as well be working away in their house because I'm not seeing them. So it's important. It gets more, for me. It got more and more important as as I start to get a family, young children. My priorities shifted. It wasn't necessarily about earning as much money as I could. It was more about actually I'm comfortable, but I needed to spend more time with the
Hmm.
kids because they're only little for a very short period of time.
Right.
So that's where my focus went. Regarding finances and stuff like that, it's pretty much the same over here. We had something similar to home economics, but that's pretty much it. So there wasn't anything really about budgeting or what you should do with if you came across a big lump sum of money, you can invest, how to invest it, what to do with it, and stuff like that. So no, there's not really anything like that at all.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know whether that's more of a push now in schools. Now I don't know. It's been a long time since I was at school, but there's certainly
Yeah.
nothing like that when I was at school. And
Yeah.
regarding sort of development, I think really it sort of depends what company you're working for. If you're the first ever company was an install company, never did any servicing, no real breakdowns. So it was you install and you might move into sort of a project manager role. That's it. There was no real progression any other way. The second company, again, the reason I left is because I very quickly starting that company, I became their senior engineer on the AC side, and there was going to be the only way I'd have progressed is if my direct line manager had retired. And as he was only 10 years older than me, unless he was going to win the lottery, that was not going to happen anytime soon. And it's
Right.
not necessarily the particular job that I wanted, what he did. So that's when I very quickly became, right, I'll go self-employed because at that particular time, I thought, I don't see any progression forward. I would have always loved to work for a manufacturer, whether that actually panned out of until you do that role, you don't know whether you're really going to love it or not. It's just that thing. I think you go through, you go, that's the ultimate goal, working for a manufacturer. Whether
Hmm.
it is or not, I don't know. Maybe that's something in the future. I don't know. But
Yeah.
with this new role and the more possible teaching side of it and the learning more of the office side of it, I think I can see a future there. I can see a logical progression forward of where I want to be in the next 5, 10 years.
Hmm.
And to be fair, I feel more confident now that if that doesn't pan out, there are more avenues available to me that I can
Right.
at least try. Might not work out, but I can at least try them.
Yeah, and I think you made a smart move, Alex. I really do, because the fact is, when you're working in service, I know a lot of guys that did that. They started driving a truck and they stayed in that truck till they retired. The biggest complaint that I get is that their bodies just, when you're in your 20s and you're lugging, 24-foot extension ladders around, or you're, hucking a 5-ton compressor up on a roof or something like that, you do stuff, you don't even think about it. But man, when you're kneeling down to work on a roof unit or a piece of refrigeration equipment when you're in your 50s, your knees really start talking to you.
Oh
You
yeah,
start
I'm only 33 and my knees are not my friends.
Yeah. So you made a smart move in that, you're leveraging your brain assets because you got all this experience, and you're gonna ultimately you'll be able to stay in the trade a lot longer because you're not being so abusive of your body.
No, and I think this is part of the problem when especially when young people come into it, that there's not this sort of conversation where you really need to look after yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
you have the bravado of when you're in your twenties, like I can carry two nitrogen bottles at once. I can lift this unit single-handedly. No, you're not showing off to me. I don't care how much you can carry, but your
Yeah.
body will care in the next few years.
Right.
And because if you're, especially if you're sort of an install guy that if that's fine. If you're happy installing, that's fine. But as you get older, that installing becomes harder and harder. And if you have an injury where it really affects your day to day, then where are you going to go from that? Because
Right.
if you can't install like you used to, or you can't install at all, unless you have a bit of a technical mind, you can go into something like that. But if you don't, then I don't really know what what where you can go with that. And there's been a few guys that I've worked with who have been in the 60s, and I mean, fair play to them for carry on installing in really cold, wet, windy weather, and they're still doing the job. But they're hurting. You can see them hurting, and
Yeah.
I I don't wish that on anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Alex, what's the maximum wage out there in pounds? I assume they pay most of the technicians hourly, correct?
Yes, so the most of it's hourly rate. So
Okay.
the average salary in the UK is about 38,000, which I think is about $46,500.
Let's see
Um,
here. Yeah, it's 46.5. Yeah, 46,500.
Bear in mind, obviously, the cost of living, I believe, is lower in the UK than it is in the US, so that will probably affect the number somewhat. But the average air conditioning wage in this country is between 32 and 42,000 pounds, which I think equates to about 39 to 51,000 US.
Well,
Um,
yeah, 38,000 pounds. I've got a little converter here. Is 38,000 pounds is 46,570 annually.
yeah,
Uh,
so that's the UK average.
yeah. Okay.
AC average is 32 to 42.
Okay.
Um, But there's I know plenty. I mean, if you're a subcontractor, that's completely different. I mean, those
Oh, you
guys
mean
are
like a
probably
business owner?
no. So,
Oh,
well, if you're a subcontractor, well, well, not the definition, but the terminology over here. If you're a subcontractor, as a one-man band, so I could go on my own. I could sub to other companies, my previous
I
company,
see.
or
Okay.
I could work directly for the client. So obviously they
Yeah.
charge a lot more because they're paying for their own fuel, tools,
Right.
insurances, all that sort of stuff.
Okay. We call
So
that
those guys
hired
can
gun.
charge. Yeah, yeah, pretty much, yeah. So those guys, I mean, they can name their price. I mean, they're earning anywhere between 400 and 500 pounds a day, depending where they're working. So you can
Yeah.
earn a
Okay.
lot of money doing it that way. But your normal guy that's working for a company, it's about between 32 and 42,000 pounds.
So you mentioned cost of living. So because what I try to do, I don't know if you have this problem in the UK, but we have a huge problem over here because there's a lot of competition. So back to the original conversation we had early on about these young people getting out of high school at 18, 19 years old. They're getting pressure sometimes from their parents, definitely from the schools that, if you want to do anything with your life, you have to go get a 4-year degree. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
messaging that a lot of them have. Anyway, and a lot of the information that is being told here in the U.S. about wages that have to do with skilled trades is put out by the government, and the high school counselors, because they have counselors in our high schools here, they all use the federal data to to share with the kids and the parents of what skilled trades are compared to college educated people. Anyway, the problem over here is the numbers are screwed up. They're not right. So the reality of it is that I'm going to give you an example. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that's here in the U.S., that's the government entity that does this. You know, I'm pulling a number from the air, but it just kind of gives you an idea. They may say, $32,000 to $35,000 US is about what you're going to make. Well, the reality of it is it's twice that. And when I dug into it, I found that the information that the federal government, their ways of gathering in the information is flawed. So the data, they're not trying to mislead us. It's just the data that they're using to create their numbers is incorrect. So my whole point is, the reason why I went off on that tangent is that that's one of the problems we have here in the U.S. of getting people interested in skilled trades is because it's out there that you just can't make much money, which is just wrong, you know? So I know people here that are making well over $100,000 US a year, well over that.
Yeah, I mean, does that number reflect overtime, or is that a basic rate number that you have over there?
That's a basic rate number, yeah. So, but it's still low. It's still low. So, okay, so let's say you're making 38,000 pounds a year in UK. What kind of a lifestyle does that afford you to live in? Are you looking at you can afford to buy a house, vacation, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean the housing market is a complete different scary question anyway, mortgage rates and everything. Yeah, you know, if you're on 40,000, then you, depending where you live. I mean, London is a different
Yeah,
animal.
forget London. Yeah,
But if you're outside of London, then yeah, you can get yourself a reasonable property. I mean,
okay.
I don't know any AC engineer that's not doing overtime. So the chances are that you're going to be on sort of the high end number. So you know you're going to have you can have your own property, or I mean you can. I mean, I bought my first house when I was 24, so
hmm
it's certainly doable. I mean, but that was obviously a few years back, but it's more and more difficult now with the rise of inflation and the
Right.
rise of house prices. But yeah, it's certainly a comfortable lifestyle. Yeah, you're
hmm
certainly going to go on your holidays. I mean, if you stick a couple of kids in there, that gets a little bit more
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
But
No. Yeah.
no one can ever afford kids.
Yeah. No kidding, huh? So, hey, before we wrap things up, I want to ask you a couple of questions to help the audience out there. So, um, what message would you get out there, Alex, to maybe parents of kids that are getting ready to graduate from what I call high school, that are trying to decide, should we uh, what's a better way to go, trades or going to a four-year college? I mean, what advice would you give to those people that are trying to make those decisions right now?
The first thing I would say is forget this mentality where, oh, my child is not very academic, so I'll put him through a trade school. I don't know where this mentality has come from. It's not a second-rate career path,
hmm
you know, and it's that mentality as well, you know, I don't think he'll do well at university, so just let's get him a trade and he'll be able to earn a living. I think that's just an utter ridiculous mentality. So
hmm
get rid of that mentality completely. I don't think kids, because they are kids at that age. When I was 18, I thought it was all grown up, but you're not. You can't expect somebody at that age to know what they want to do for the rest of their life. So give them the tools. So whatever they do decide to do when they're older, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, or even 50s, so they've got the ability to have a good, exciting life when they are young. And if that's a trade, then brilliant. I can't recommend this trade enough because of the amount of different things you get into. I mean, even if you're doing basic installing, well, there's nothing basic about it, but you're doing plumbing, you're doing electrics, you're doing ductwork. There's so many little things you're doing, and it's a fantastic trade to get into. But yeah, the first thing is definitely get out of this mentality of it's this sort of second-rate idea that, you know, if that doesn't work out, let's do this.
Right.
And engage with them, find out what they find interesting, what their hobbies are. I mean, for me, one of the easiest ways of finding out if you think you've got a good apprentice is, what are their hobbies? Oh, I like working on my dad's car. Brilliant. Brilliant, because you already have got a mechanical mindset. That's exactly what we need. If it's, oh, I want to mess around with electrics, I like doing little circuits and stuff like that. Great. Electrician's the way to go. Find out what they're interested in outside of your normal school stuff. But I think the biggest thing is get rid of this pressure on young adults to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their life.
Right.
Get them the tools they need, whether that's financial tools of what to do, plan with your money. But I don't think that the pressure should be there. I think we should give them the tools they need to succeed in life. A job can come after that.
Very good. That's a great takeaway. So the second part of that question is, so let's say you have a technician who's in skilled trades and they're feeling a little burnout. You know, they're feeling stuck and they're thinking about, you know, I don't see this going anywhere. And maybe they might be a little bit discouraged for whatever reason, and they're thinking about getting out of skilled trades. What words of wisdom would you share with that individual?
I mean, I pretty much was that individual.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me was engaging with other people, and finding out which bit of the industry I particularly enjoyed and what I loved about it, and tried to move back to that. Now, it might be a case that your current employer can't give you those opportunities. And I completely understand it. It's a scary thing when you've been somewhere for a long period of time, making that jump to either a new company or a new division or something new. I mean, I'm a grown man, but it was still a daunting task for me to leave a company after 10 years. But it's getting back to what bit of the trade you love, because there's plenty of things that are mundane or boring that your day-to-day working can be, but it's trying to find those things that you do enjoy and trying to focus on if you want to carry on those things or try new things in this industry. So say if you just solely do install, but you really quite like the idea of chillers, if your company doesn't do that, speak to chiller companies, explain your situation, say this is what I do, but I want to move into it. The worst they're going to say is, no, we're not going to take you on. But you won't know until you ask. Speak to other chiller guys. Social media, for all its bad things, some of it's really good, that you can speak to people that are already doing the jobs that you possibly may want to get involved in, and talk to them about it. You might find, well, actually, I don't fancy doing chillers after talking to so-and-so. So I think the biggest thing is communicate. If you can do what you want to do or what you enjoy doing at your company, brilliant. If you can't, don't be afraid of making the jump. It's a scary thing, but what's worse? Being stuck in a dead-end job where you start to resent what you do, or making the plunge and going somewhere that it's possibly exciting. And if you're good at what you do, you will always find work somewhere else.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. Hey, so Alex, we've been at this about an hour now. You know what? If my audience has any questions, what's the social media site to? I know you're on LinkedIn. Where do you hang out online these days?
So if you want to ask me random questions that I may or may not be able to answer, I'm on LinkedIn. It's Alex Richards. I'm also on Instagram. It'll be at air.con.alex, which is what I post normal random stuff that I'm doing. I've also got a YouTube. That's mainly just somewhere to store videos, and that's Aircon Alex. But LinkedIn's probably the best one. But it's Alex Richards or Aircon Alex. It's just Google it, you'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, make sure you stay bored because I want to see you post stuff more as much as you can. I enjoy the heck out of your videos. I do.
Oh, I appreciate it. I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
good.
I all started this because of boredom, but probably some good things have started out from boredom, I guess.
Yeah, no, that was a great story. That's really good. Yeah, nothing else to do. I was waiting for this thing. I just did a video.
This is it, yeah.
That's great.
But I encourage people to do it. I mean, the best thing I could ever encourage any apprentice is if you've learned anything new,
Right.
once you've done that job, if you've got a bit of time, record yourself talking about it, the process you did, or anything like that. Because
Yeah.
there's nothing worse, especially me being dyslexic, of writing stuff down and you come to look at it and you think, I can't be bothered to read all that. But if you're recording yourself, if you don't have to post it or anything, record yourself of talking about it, and it'll help jog your memory if you ever need to come back to it. Especially if you've got an exam and you talk about psychometric charts, and you're thinking, yes, now I know what I was talking about. So that, I mean, that's the biggest advice I could give anybody new in the trade. Record yourself doing things that you don't normally do or have done something new, and it'll easily jog your memory. Again, it doesn't have to be for the public viewing. It can be for your own personal use, but it just helps so much, especially with this industry. There seems to be a lot of dyslexic people in it, whether it's an industry that, because of how the dyslexic mind works with logic solving, it attracts,
Right.
or people think, I don't want to go to university. There's too much writing involved. I'll do a trade, and that's where all the dyslexics end up. I don't know. But doing videos of yourself can really sort of jog your memory back to things. So, and that's pretty
Well,
much how I did some of
yeah,
them.
yeah. The other thing that's really helpful, what I found is when, let's say you have a subject that you're experiencing that you want to share. There's something that happens when you're talking about it. In other words, when you have to teach somebody else or you want to share with somebody else, that experience of explaining yourself helps you retain information a lot better, right? I don't know.
Oh,
It's just
definitely.
I don't know if it happens to you. Maybe that's just a dyslexic brain thing, but
Oh yeah, definitely. There's been times where even a subject that I've not been 100% about, and I've been talking to somebody about it, and then it just clicks in my mind and go, oh yeah, it's because of that. So yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's effectively what you're doing by recording yourself. You're just reteaching yourself. So
yeah.
hopefully it just stays in the mind a little bit longer.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm a big believer in sharing, especially now because, yeah, and I know you've seen it. You've been at it long enough, where when I first got into HVAC refrigeration back in the 80s, there wasn't a lot of evolution. There wasn't. We didn't really have printed circuit boards and machinery. It really didn't change a lot for the first decade of my my technician life, right? But then all of a
Mm.
sudden, it just started going nuts. I mean, the acceleration of the automation controls and printed circuit boards and logic and all this stuff has really taken off, especially in the VRF stuff, the VRF space. Whew, it's
Oh
crazy.
yes,
And
definitely. It moves so quickly, and this is why it's such a good idea to get as many young people as possible because they pick up that stuff so quickly. I've got a
right,
5-year-old and he's got this Amazon tablet. I have no idea how to control it, but he is an absolute whiz. He is 5 years old. And this is the
that's
thing. As things get more complicated, more PC driven and all this sort of connected with everything, younger minds pick it up so much faster. And I need younger people to do that for me when I can't do it.
yeah, it's pretty bad when like you're trying to get your little tablet working and your 5-year-old comes in and says, "Give me that, Dad."
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
you know, yeah, it's a real interesting time right now because the acceleration of that, and back to teaching. So these manufacturers now they're trying to make their products smarter and smarter, and our industry's been catching up for the last probably 2 decades to what's happening in the automotive industry, that kind of stuff. So they're making changes all the time, like you mentioned earlier about putting a VRF into a particular mode to make, like a test mode or whatever. Well, they may change the button sequence to do that, right? And they don't, sometimes
Yeah.
they don't put it in the manuals. The manuals don't even keep up with how fast the technology is changing. So Alex putting out a video, hey guys, I'm working on a new Mitsubishi multi-zone split, and this is brand new, and here's the book, and here's what the book says is not right. I spent an hour and a half on the phone with tech support. It's this button sequence to get it to do what it's supposed to. I mean, that's a huge help to thousands of people, right?
Oh, definitely, especially when you need just-in-time knowledge because of how many different manufacturers there are and how many different models of things are. You don't want to be on the phone for 45 minutes for an answer to a question. You want that information now, and if it's not easily available, then
Right.
you start getting shortcuts. And as things get more and more complicated, we really don't want shortcuts. We want things done properly.
Right.
But that just-in-time information is hugely important. And I mean, I don't know about some of the American manufacturers, but especially some of the VRV manufacturers, some of the information is really easily available, but some of it is an absolute nightmare to get hold of, and they don't push that information that easily. The likes of Dakin, I mean, their app is fantastic for some of the information, but it's not all the information. And it's when you need those little bits and bobs where the amount of times I've found a video on YouTube of someone with a similar situation to me, and I've got that information there and then. It's so useful for an engineer when you've got limited amount of time on a site. You need this thing working quickly as possible, and you've got that just-in-time information. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
You've not got the stress of the customer who wants this thing up and running, and you're not on the phone for an hour and a half waiting for somebody to go, oh yeah, you just push this button for 2 seconds. Awesome. I wish I had that 2 hours ago.
Yeah, and you know what? We have to be there for each other. You know, yeah. So I'm a big proponent of that. So guys, if you have a technical problem that you're able to fix, especially those ones when you've been on the phone 45 minutes, just do a YouTube, set up your own YouTube channel. Takes 10 minutes. Do a quick recording with this magic device you have in your pocket, and share it with everybody, because that will definitely come back at you if you share, and you have a problem on a different piece of equipment. That video may be there for you to help you figure it out quicker. So it all comes back.
Oh, massively, yeah.
Yeah.
And don't worry about what you look or sound like. After I did my first video, I felt like I had to apologize to everybody who's heard my voice, because you never hear your own voice.
Yeah. I had the same thing when I was doing my first started my podcast. I every once in a while I'll go back and I'll look at some of my original ones. I'm like, man, that's pretty rough.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, just like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it. You know.
That's it. I mean, it doesn't have to look all polished or anything like that. If the information's there and it's good and it's easy to follow, then it really doesn't matter. And don't be worried about if all the details aren't quite right. Nobody's going to criticize. You'll go, oh, hold on a minute, you've said that number's wrong. It's as long as the information's there for people to use, then it's such a useful tool.
So that is it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I very much look forward to continuing to connect with you. Please don't hesitate to send me messages on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. Or you can reach out to me on my email. And until next week, when I give you the next installment, I wish you a great week, and I will connect up with you again soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.